everyone. Thank you for being here for the 2017 Symposium for Early Success. It's exciting to see so many child advocates, business and community leaders, and policymakers from across Kansas together in one room, committed to improving the lives of Kansas kids. And I know we still have many members of the House of Representatives who are on the floor and will be joining us in just a bit. My name is McKay, and I'm the President and CEO of Kansas Action for Children. It's my privilege to welcome you here on behalf of the Partnership for Early Success, the host of this event. The Partnership for Early Success launched in 2014 to build a more cohesive grassroots voice for young children in Kansas. It represents a diverse range of organizations and individuals committed to improving the healthy development of young children in our state. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize the members of the Kansas Children's Cabinet staff, and the KU evaluation team. These folks represent a structure and a framework that has been lauded as the gold standard, and that supports our vital early learning system in this state. Would you please stand? Let's give them a round of applause. I should have cued everybody that I was going to make some folks stand. My apologies. I would also like the Partnership for Early Success leadership team to stand, please. This team has been at the helm of our work and has been instrumental in building our child advocacy network across Kansas. We're done standing, just so everybody's off the hook now. You can breathe and eat. In 2015 and 2016, this symposium received so much interest we had to cap registration. That trend not only continued this year, but we also welcome nearly 50 state policymakers at some point who will be joining us for lunch, as well as Kansas's Attorney General, Derek Schmidt, and the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson. We know you all have one or two things on your to-do list at the moment, and we genuinely appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thank you. As encouraged as we are by this turnout, our excitement today really wasn't about filling the room. We are at a critical juncture for Kansas children and families. Like Amanda's story that we heard earlier from Hutchinson, who you met in that opening video, the direction lawmakers choose will define our state for generations to come. Today is about amplifying that message and elevating all that is at stake. So I frequently describe myself as a fiercely proud Kansan. When I travel to other states on work for behalf of Kansas Action for Children, somehow, whether I plan to or not, I always find myself coming back and referencing iconically Kansas things. Things like our state motto, Ad Astra per Astra, which means to the stars through difficulty. To be fair, it hasn't been too difficult to work that one in over the last couple of years. We have confronted an unusually high number of difficulties lately. And that's really saying something in a place where, for many of our early years, the most famous catchphrase associated with our state was, "In God we trusted, in Kansas we busted." Or I talk about our hardy state flower, a symbol so dearly connected to the Kansas identity that 30,000 people showed up last September at the famous Grinter Farms in Leavenworth County to wander through 40 acres of sunflowers. Despite the mud and the bugs, visitors came with such enthusiasm they backed up traffic in 3 directions, just to say hi to Farmer Ted and his wife and spend a few minutes basking in a field of Kansas's state flower. Those are a couple of examples, and I could truly talk about Kansas all the time. It's something I do with great pride, and it's oftentimes my friends will tell me it's hard to get me to stop. And I know I'm not the only one. When historians reflect on our state, they always seem to make note of a unique collective mindset among its people. Of course, the observations vary in their levels of flattery depending on the issues of the day. We've been described as optimistic and idealistic, but at times to the point of naive. We've been called relentlessly stubborn and self-reliant, which to me seems to be sort of a prerequisite for pioneers. Intensely passionate, sometimes to the point of radical extreme. Nobody pointing the fingers at anybody in the room. Born fighters with unwavering conviction and endurance, even if the challenges are of our own making. And we can probably find some truth in all of these descriptors. Each trait seems to bubble to the surface to some degree every now and then. But regardless of whether outsiders see that as inspiration or wonder what's wrong with us, when they look to our state and its citizens, I think a Pulitzer Prize-winning civil historian said it best in 1954, when Kansas asserts herself, the whole world knows it. I bring all this up because 2017 is a year of extraordinary consequence for our state. And when faced with big decisions, we are undeniably a go big or go home kind of place. Sometimes this has manifested itself in unusual ways, like when we got into a decades-long competition with Minnesota over who could build the largest ball of twine. Naturally, we won. More frequently, though, it has resulted in the profound betterment of our entire country, like when we became the first state in America to pass a resolution in support of the 15th Amendment, which granted African Americans the right to vote. Or when we elected the nation's first female mayor and the first female all-city council. Or when we enacted a comprehensive child labor law in 1905, 12 years before national child labor laws were adopted, which removed 2,000 Kansas kids from unsafe factories, packing houses, and mines, and instead put them into school classrooms. Or lastly, when we initiated a legal challenge that eventually ended government-sanctioned racial segregation in our schools. But unfortunately, in recent years, going big has been to our detriment. One example that comes to mind, just off the top of my head, might be a fateful day in 2012 when an experimental tax policy was pushed through the state legislature and signed into law despite dire warnings of its impact. So with another consequential moment before us, given that intense passion some historians have keenly observed among Kansans, we stand to benefit from a little reflection on our past, on where we came from and how we got to where we are to find our true north. And this is the purpose of this symposium. There is so much at stake for Kansas's early childhood system this year. It has never been more important to understand how we ended up with the prized statewide early childhood infrastructure we have today, and how it fits together with the rest of our education system and our economy as a whole. Decades ago, states across the country began to fully feel the financial impact as they were absorbing the public health costs of increased smoking rates. So they banded together and sued Big Tobacco. This resulted in what we call the Master Settlement Agreement. Put simply, it's an annual payment to states from tobacco companies in perpetuity, or for as long as people continue to buy tobacco products. The amount varies from year to year, but on average, over the course of the settlement in Kansas, it's been just a little under $60 million for almost the last 2 decades. And speaking of that going big or going home mentality, when this settlement was reached in the late 1990s, Kansas went big in the best way possible. State lawmakers devoted all of Kansas's settlement dollars to our state's youngest and most vulnerable kids. We were the only state in the nation to do so, and it was a bold vision, a uniquely Kansas blend of ingenuity and common sense. Today, that vision has transformed into a thriving state legacy. In fact, last year, a statewide efficiency audit elevated the Children's Initiative Fund as a successful example of accountability and return on investment in state government. And this is why it is so troubling to me that the Children's Initiative Fund has been a target of repeated attacks over the last year. Most in this room are well aware that Kansas faces its 10th budget crisis as a result of unprecedented tax changes made in 2012. And after having exhausted most of the short-term band-aids available in the last few years, the governor has continued to actively pursue dismantling our early childhood infrastructure and sell its revenue source to Wall Street investors for pennies on the dollar. This move might give our state a quick influx of cash to temporarily fill the latest budget hole, but it would not fix the state's long-term structural imbalance. It would, however, permanently destroy a flourishing system that every year reaches over 200,000 Kansas kids in all 105 of our counties. Child advocates, some of you who are in the room today, have been raising alarm about this issue for the last year, and quite loudly, and thank you. We're also grateful for all those policymakers in the room who have listened to that call to action to not destroy our early childhood system. And today we're going to focus on the long game, the big picture. And we're excited to be joined by experts in education and business to lead that discussion. The stakes are high this year, but not just for our state. This is an unusual time in our nation's history as well. Some have pointed to Kansas policies as a potential model for the country. As a result, we yet again find ourselves in the national spotlight with an opportunity to pioneer bold ideas in an uncertain time. It's still unclear what type of model Kansas will be, what message we will send to the nation, or to future Kansans who will read about this moment, this legislative session in the history books. 2017 is our opportunity to ensure that it's a message that not only preserves that unshakable Kansas pride, but inspires the Kansans who come next to propel it forward long after we're all gone. It's pretty exciting stuff, so let's dive in. I would now like to ask Peggy Kelly, the Executive Director of the Kansas Head Start Association, to join me.